What would you do if the house you entered at midnight whispered your name? A forgotten manor, a ghostly sister bound by betrayal, and a man whose love hides a dangerous truth. Elena thought she was only exploring old walls, but the manor had already written her name into its story. As shadows crawl and secrets bleed through the cracks, one choice will decide whether love can save her or condemn her forever. The road stretched endlessly under the pale silver glow of the moon. Tall trees pressed close on either side, their branches clawing at the air like skeletal fingers. The night was unnaturally quiet. Even the wind seemed afraid to whisper. Elena Whitmore, 24 years old, sat in the back seat of the cab. Her heart beat with a strange mix of excitement and dread. She had always been fascinated by old places, forgotten buildings, and the secrets they carried. And tonight, she was about to step into one of them. The cab slowed, its headlights sweeping across a looming structure in the distance. The haunted manor. A mansion that locals rarely spoke of, except in hushed voices around dim fires. The building stood with broken pride. Its stone walls were stained by decades of weather. Its windows glared like dark, hollow eyes. The wrought iron gates creaked open as if moved by an unseen hand. The driver, a man in his 50s with tired eyes, cleared his throat. His voice was uneasy. "Miss, are you sure you want to go in there?" Elena turned her gaze toward the manor. Her long brown hair shifted slightly as a cold breeze brushed her face. She tightened her coat around her slender frame. "I am sure," she answered, her tone firm but quiet. The cab pulled away reluctantly, its taillights swallowed by the darkness. Now she was alone. The gravel crunched beneath her boots as she stepped forward. Each sound echoed far too loudly, bouncing back from the silent walls. The front doors of the manor loomed before her. Massive oak, weathered and scarred, with rusted iron handles. Her hand trembled slightly as she touched the cold metal. The door gave way with a slow groan. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. The grand hallway stretched wide, lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. A chandelier, broken and heavy with cobwebs, hung low. The scent of damp wood and decay filled her lungs. She stepped further inside, her footsteps muffled by the worn carpet. Suddenly, a sound. A faint whisper. It slid across the air, too soft to understand, but clear enough to feel. Elena froze. Her skin prickled, and her breath grew shallow. The whisper came again, this time closer, almost at her ear. She spun around. No one stood there. Only shadows stretched across the walls. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. And then she saw it. At the far end of the hallway, in the dim glow of moonlight through cracked glass, a figure stood. Tall, still, cloaked in darkness. She blinked, and it was gone. But the air remained heavy, charged with something unseen. Her voice trembled as she whispered to herself. "This is only the beginning." The silence pressed against Elena's ears. Her pulse quickened, each beat echoing louder than the last. She forced herself to step deeper into the hallway. The floorboards creaked under her weight, their sound sharp and hollow. Her fingers brushed the wallpaper. The fabric was damp, peeling, and cold as ice. The portraits stared with lifeless eyes, their painted faces blurred by dust and age. One of them drew her attention. A young woman, pale, dressed in flowing white, with eyes that glistened unnaturally in the dim light. Elena felt her breath catch. For a moment, she swore the eyes blinked. She staggered back, her boots striking something on the floor. A candle holder, tarnished and bent, rolled with a metallic clang. The sound seemed to stir the silence. And then came the footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming from the staircase that spiraled upward in the center of the hall. Elena's heart leapt into her throat. She stared at the stairs, her body refusing to move. And then he appeared. A young man. Tall, with broad shoulders, no older than 26. His dark hair fell just above his brows, his eyes a piercing shade of grey that seemed to reflect the moonlight. He wore a long black coat, buttoned to his chest, and his boots shone as though freshly polished. There was something elegant, almost timeless, about him. Yet his presence chilled the air. The wooden banister groaned as he placed his hand upon it. "Who are you?" His voice was deep, smooth, and steady. Elena swallowed hard, her throat dry. My name is Elena Whitmore. I came here to see this place. His gaze did not leave hers. You should not be here, he replied, his tone firm but not unkind. I had to, Elena said, her words spilling before she could think. I needed to know why this manor is spoken of in whispers. The young man descended the final steps, his figure commanding yet strangely graceful. He stopped a few paces from her. My name is Adrian Blackwood, he said. His voice lowered. This house holds more than whispers. It holds wounds. And once you enter, the house remembers you. Elena felt a sharp chill race down her spine. What do you mean? She asked softly. Adrian's expression darkened. The candle flames in the hallway flickered though no wind stirred. He leaned closer, his grey eyes locking with hers. You have already heard it. The whisper in the walls. Her lips parted, but no words came. The air thickened around them. The silence shattered. A sudden crash echoed from above. The ceiling trembled as if struck by invisible hands. Dust rained down, and the chandelier swayed violently. Adrian grabbed her arm, his grip firm yet protective. Do not go upstairs, he whispered. But even as he spoke, the sound came again. A scream. High-pitched. Agonized. From the very top floor. Elena's blood ran cold. And in that instant, she realized she was not only inside a haunted manor. She was trapped in its story. The scream still echoed in Elena's ears. It clawed at her mind, sharp and raw, as though it had torn straight through the air. Her knees weakened, but Adrian's grip on her arm steadied her. She stared at him, her chest rising and falling in rapid bursts. Someone is up there, she whispered. His grey eyes darkened, shadows flickering across them. No, he said firmly. What you heard is not someone. It is something. The words slid into her bones like ice. She shook her head, refusing to accept them. Her instinct screamed that a living soul was trapped above, calling for help. Elena pulled her arm free. The dust was still floating in the air, settling slowly like falling ash. Her boots crunched against fragments of plaster that had broken loose from the ceiling. She stepped towards the staircase, the wooden steps rising before her like the open jaws of a beast. Adrian followed, his coat brushing the ground as he moved. Elena, do not, he said, his tone sharp, but laced with something more, something like fear. She glanced back at him. In the glow of moonlight from a fractured window, his face was tense, jaw clenched, yet his eyes revealed a flicker of concern. You heard it too, she said. For a moment, silence passed between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Adrian's voice lowered. Yes, I heard it. But you must understand, what calls to you may not wish to be saved. Elena swallowed the rising knot in her throat, but her feet refused to retreat. Each step upward groaned, bending under her weight. The staircase twisted, climbing into a shadowy passage where the light faded. The air thickened as they ascended. Colder. Staler. As though the house was holding its breath. At the top, a narrow corridor stretched into the darkness. The wallpaper here was torn to ribbons. Scratches marred the woodwork, deep and jagged, as though clawed by something desperate. Elena's hand brushed one of the grooves. The splinters pricked her skin. And then, she froze. From the far end of the corridor, a faint sound rose. Not a scream this time. A soft, broken sob. Her heart lurched. Someone is crying, she whispered. Adrian's boots clicked softly against the wooden floor as he moved beside her. His face was unreadable. Or something is pretending to. The sobbing grew louder, echoing against the narrow walls. It pulled Elena forward. Her breath fogged in the freezing air as she approached the final door. It was tall, cracked, and bound with rusted hinges. She raised her hand, the wood cold beneath her fingertips. For a moment, silence returned. Then, 3 sharp knocks thundered from the other side of the door. Elena gasped, stumbling back. Adrian's hand shot out, steadying her once more. But his eyes remained fixed on the door. And slowly, too slowly, the door began to open. Not pushed by any visible hand. Not pulled by any living force. It creaked wide enough to reveal only darkness inside. And in that darkness, a single whisper floated out. Low. Chilling. Elena. Her name. Spoken by a voice she had never heard before. Her blood turned to ice. The sound of her name lingered in the air like smoke. Elena's throat tightened. Her eyes darted to Adrian, desperate for some explanation. But his face remained still, grim, as though he had expected this moment. The door stood ajar, blackness yawning beyond it. The sobbing had stopped. Only silence pressed against her ears now, heavy and suffocating. Elena's palm was damp with sweat as she touched the edge of the door. It was colder than ice. The wood stung her skin, as if rejecting her touch. Her body screamed to turn back, yet her curiosity dragged her forward. She pushed. The hinges wailed, screaming against the silence. The darkness within shifted, swallowing the moonlight from the corridor. Adrian stepped close, his presence sharp, protective. His coat brushed her arm as he whispered, "Do not answer if it speaks again." The words sank deep into her chest, unsettling her more than the whisper itself. She swallowed, her mouth dry. And then, together, they stepped inside. The room was small. The air hung thick with the smell of mold and damp stone. A broken rocking chair rested in the corner, its surface layered with dust. Cobwebs hung like veils from the rafters, swaying as if disturbed by an unseen breath. But it was the far wall that held her attention. There, carved deep into the plaster, were words. Dozens of them. Names. Dates. Messages. Some scratched so violently that splinters of wood and stone had torn free. Elena bent closer, her fingers brushing the etchings. Her heart pounded as her eyes caught the newest carving. Her own name. Elena Whitmore. Etched in sharp, fresh strokes. Her hand trembled. She staggered back, the sight hammering against her thoughts. "How?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "How is my name here?" Adrian's expression hardened. His jaw tightened, his eyes glinting with a storm she could not name. "The house knows you now," he said softly. "It waits for those who enter. It marks them." Elena's breath quickened. Her chest rose and fell in panicked rhythm. Her mind screamed to flee, yet her legs felt locked to the floor. And then, the rocking chair moved. Slowly. Back and forth. Back and forth. The creak of it would cut through the silence like a blade. Elena froze, her eyes wide. "There is no one in it," she whispered. Adrian's hand brushed her wrist, a grounding touch. "Do not look too long," he said firmly. But it was too late. From the empty chair, a shape began to form. At first, only a shimmer. Like heat rising from stone. Then clearer. A woman. Her skin pale as parchment. Her hair long and tangled, black as night. Her eyes hollow, yet burning with sorrow. The sob returned, this time from her lips. The air grew sharper, colder, filling Elena's lungs with frost. The figure raised her hand, her long fingers trembling. Her lips parted. "Elena." The voice was soft, broken, but unmistakable. It was the same one that had whispered through the door. Elena stumbled back, her back striking the wall, her pulse wild. Adrian stepped forward, placing himself between Elena and the ghostly form. His voice cut through the chilling air. "Enough." The woman's sobbing stopped instantly. Her head tilted, and her empty eyes fixed on Adrian. The room quivered, the walls seeming to groan as if alive. And then, with a shriek like tearing metal, the figure dissolved into mist. The rocking chair fell still. The silence returned. Elena's breath came in sharp bursts, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Adrian turned to her, his grey eyes softer now, filled with something unspoken. "You see now," he murmured. "The manor does not haunt. It remembers. It calls. And it does not release easily." Elena stared at him, fear and questions burning inside her. And one thought rose louder than the rest. Why did the ghost know her name? Elena's legs felt unsteady, as though the floor beneath her shifted. Her name, carved into the wall. Her name, whispered by a spirit she had never seen. The thought gnawed at her chest, refusing to let go. She pressed her palm against the cold plaster, trying to steady her breath. Adrian stood silent, his eyes still fixed on the space where the ghost had been. The faint traces of mist lingered in the air, twisting like smoke before fading into nothingness. Elena's voice cracked as she whispered. She spoke my name. She knew me. Adrian turned slowly. His face was carved with tension, his jaw tight, his grey eyes shadowed. There are things the manor knows that you do not. It remembers bloodlines. It remembers grief. And it remembers promises left broken. The words struck her like stones, leaving her confused and unsettled. She swallowed hard. What does that mean? Adrian's lips parted as though he wished to speak, but before the words came, a sound shattered the silence. A knock. Sharp. Deliberate. From inside the wall itself. Elena's eyes widened. The knocks came again, faster now, as though something trapped within the plaster fought to break free. Dust rained from the cracks. Elena stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. The whispers returned, swirling around the room. A chorus of voices this time, broken and faint, but desperate. Leave, leave, leave. Her ears rang with the sound, pressing into her skull. Her chest tightened with fear. And then, from the wall where her name was carved, the woman's voice rose once more. Elena, run. The sound was raw, urgent. Not threatening now, but pleading. The air thickened, heavy as stone. The door slammed shut behind them with a violent crack. Elena spun, her hand striking the wood, but it would not budge. She turned, panic racing through her veins. Adrian had not moved. He stood perfectly still, watching the wall with an expression Elena could not read. Fear. Recognition. Or something darker. Adrian, she cried, her voice breaking. She is warning us. Finally, his eyes shifted to her. His voice was low, heavy with something unsaid. No. She is warning you. The words froze her blood. The knocks grew louder, harder, shaking the very room. The plaster cracked, splitting like bone. And just before the wall gave way, Adrian seized Elena's hand and pulled her violently toward him. The room plunged into darkness. And for the first time, Elena realized she might not fear the ghost as much as the secrets Adrian carried. The darkness swallowed the room whole. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears, her hand clutched tightly in Adrian's grip. She could still hear the wall splitting, the wood and plaster snapping like brittle bones. But when her eyes adjusted, the cracks were gone. The room was silent again, unchanged, as if nothing had ever happened. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "What is happening? What did you do?" Adrian turned slowly toward her. His face was pale in the dim light, his eyes colder than before, yet burning with something deeper. "Elena, you should not have come here," he said, his voice sharp yet lined with regret. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her fear twisting now into anger. "You keep saying that, but you never explain. You knew her. You knew the ghost would call my name." Adrian's jaw tightened. He looked away, his shadow stretching against the wall like a figure of its own. Finally, his words came, low and deliberate. "She was not warning us about the house. She was warning you, about me." Elena's breath caught. Her hands trembled, yet she refused to step back. "Why?" she demanded. "Who are you really?" Adrian's eyes flicked toward the carvings on the wall, then back to her. The air between them thickened with tension. "I am Adrian Blackwood," he said, his tone steady, but his gaze faltered as though the name itself carried weight. "This manor was once my family's. Every stone in these walls remembers our sins. Every voice in the dark is bound to us." Elena's heart jolted. "Your family's? Then, the spirits, the woman." Adrian's voice hardened. "She was one of us. My sister." The words echoed through the room like a bell. Elena staggered, her mind racing. A sister. A ghost. Calling her name as if she were part of the same blood. Her throat tightened. What happened to her? Adrian's eyes clouded, the grey turning almost silver under the moonlight seeping through the cracks in the roof. "She died here," he said softly. "Not by age, not by time, but by betrayal. And she has not forgiven me." The silence that followed was heavy, unbearable. Elena pressed her back against the cold wall, her breath trembling. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why does she know my name?" Adrian's gaze locked with hers. For the first time, his expression cracked, haunted, sorrowful, as though he carried a truth he feared to speak. "Because, Elena," he began, his voice nearly breaking, "you are not a stranger to her. Your family's past is tied to this house. To her death. And now the manor has brought you back." The words slammed into her like thunder. Her stomach knotted, her body cold. The carvings on the wall seemed to pulse, her name burning into the plaster. Her voice shook as she forced the question. "What does it want from me?" Adrian stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers, his presence overwhelming. "The same thing it has always wanted," he whispered. "Justice. Or sacrifice." And then, the wall cracked again, louder than before. This time, the plaster split wide. From the gap, a pale hand, clawed and trembling, reached through. The pale hand forced its way through the crack. Its fingers were long, twisted, the nails sharp and yellowed. The wall groaned, splintering wider as the hand dragged against the plaster. Elena pressed back, her breath short and sharp, her eyes wide with terror. The air turned icy. Frost spread across the carvings on the wall, encasing her name in a thin veil of ice. Adrian's body shifted in front of her, shielding her from the hand that reached out. His voice was hard, commanding, yet his tone shook with unease. "Amara. Enough." The name seemed to sting the air. The hand froze. And then, slowly, another hand tore through the wall. The wood cracked, the plaster shattered, and at last the figure of a woman forced herself free. She emerged like a shadow dragged into flesh. Her hair hung long, black, tangled with strands of dust and cobwebs. Her gown was white once, now grey with time, torn and stained. Her skin was stretched thin across her bones, her lips cracked, her eyes black voids with faint glimmers of sorrow and rage. Elena's body shook. This was no distant whisper anymore. This was real. The ghost, Adrian's sister, stood before them. Her voice scraped like stone against glass. "Elena." Elena's throat tightened, her body trembling as her name cut the silence again. Adrian stepped forward, his coat brushing the ground, his grey eyes locked onto the figure. "Do not call her," he warned. But Amara's gaze never left Elena. "You should not be here," the spirit whispered. Her voice was broken, yet carried a haunting melody, like a lullaby distorted by grief. Elena's chest heaved. "I did not come to harm you," she said, though her voice shook. Amara's head tilted, her hollow eyes blinking slowly. "You came because the house called you. It remembers you." Elena's nails dug into her palms. "Why me? What do you want?" The spirit's gaze flickered, moving for the first time from Elena to Adrian. Her broken lips curved into something between a sneer and a sob. "What I want," she hissed, "is the truth. And his silence ends tonight." The words cut through the room like a blade. Adrian's expression darkened. His hand clenched at his side. Elena's heart lurched as she looked between them. The air trembled with something ancient, heavy, ready to break. "Adrian," she whispered, fear tightening her chest. "What truth?" But before he could answer, Amara's voice rose, a scream tearing through the manor. The windows rattled, the floorboards shook, and the chandelier in the hallway below crashed to the ground. Shards of glass and dust exploded into the air. Elena covered her ears, but the scream was inside her head now, drilling into her skull. And through that scream, one word repeated again and again. "Blood. Blood. Blood." When the sound ceased, silence dropped heavy as stone. Elena staggered, gasping for air. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. She blinked, trying to focus, and saw Amara's ghost standing only inches away from her. Her icy breath brushed Elena's skin. And in a voice low and trembling, the spirit whispered, "He will betray you, just as he betrayed me." Elena's breath trembled as Amara's words sank into her chest. "He will betray you." The warning burned in her mind like fire. Her eyes darted to Adrian, searching for answers, for denial, for anything. But his face remained unreadable. Grey eyes steady, jaw clenched. The silence between them weighed heavier than the ghost's scream. "Tell me it is not true," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. Adrian took a step forward, his hand reaching toward her, but Amora's spirit surged between them, her hollow eyes blazing. "Do not touch her," the ghost shrieked, her voice cracking the air. The walls groaned, the floor shuddered, dust falling from the beams above. Adrian's voice was sharp now, desperate. "Elena, listen to me. You must not believe her. She twists the truth. She always did." Elena's chest rose and fell in rapid bursts. Her thoughts clashed violently, his protective grip, his sorrowful eyes, the ghost's plea, the carvings, her name etched in fresh strokes. She shook her head, her voice trembling. "Adrian, what did you do to her?" His silence was louder than any scream. And then, at last, his words came. Low, heavy, unforgiving. "She died because of me." The confession struck her like a blade. Amara's ghost wailed, the sound raw, filled with rage and anguish. She trusted him, the spirit sobbed, her face twisting in grief. She believed he would protect her, but he chose himself instead. Elena staggered back, her back hitting the wall, her heart crashing wildly against her ribs. Adrian's voice cut through the wail. "It was an accident," he cried. "I tried to save her, but the house demanded a life. And hers was taken. If I had not, it would have been me." The truth echoed, twisted and cruel. Elena's body shook. The manor demanded blood. And Adrian had lived while his sister perished. Her lips parted, words barely escaping. "So now, it demands mine." Amara's hollow face turned toward her, sorrow etched in every shadow. "Yes," the spirit whispered. "The house binds the living to the dead. And your blood is tied to ours." Elena's knees weakened, the world tilting as the truth settled in. She was not a visitor. She was part of the manor's story. Adrian's eyes burned with something fierce, regret, fear, and a longing she could not name. "I will not let it take you," he said, stepping closer. "Even if it takes me instead." Amara's scream rose again, shaking the very bones of the house. "Liar! You chose once before. You will choose again." The walls cracked, the floor trembled, the air split with shrieking wind. Elena's choice came sharp and fast. Trust Adrian and risk betrayal, or take the ghost's hand and embrace the unknown. Her heart thundered. Her breath caught. And in that final moment, with the manor collapsing around her, Elena whispered her choice. The house listened. And the story of love and betrayal sealed itself forever within its haunted walls. Elena's heart pounded. The ghost's icy hand reached for her. Adrian's grey eyes locked onto hers, burning with desperate truth. For one breathless moment, time froze. And Elena chose. She pulled away from the spirit's touch and stepped toward Adrian. Amara's scream ripped through the manor, so sharp it cracked the ceiling above. "You choose him again," she wailed. Her form dissolved into a storm of shadows, her voice echoing into silence. The walls groaned, but then stilled. The air softened. The manor quieted, as if defeated by her choice. Elena collapsed against Adrian's chest, his arms catching her, steady and warm despite the chill around them. "You will regret this," Amara's fading voice whispered faintly through the halls. But Elena held tighter. And for the first time since she entered the manor, she felt safe. Or so she thought. For when she looked up into Adrian's eyes, she saw it. That same shadow of guilt. That same secret he would never let go. And she wondered if Amara's warning had not been a lie after all.